Pay back £500 million in tax, which it had tried to avoid. The government is introducing retrospective legislation to close two loopholes and end what one minister described as aggressive tax avoidance schemes. Well, let's go live now to our chief political correspondent, Norman Smith, who's in Westminster for us. Norman, what stands out about this is the retrospective element of it.
Yeah, and I think perhaps many in the banking world will be concerned about that. The view in government circles is that this is an aggressive tax avoidance scheme which is in no way compatible with the code of conduct which banks like Barclays have signed up to, and is therefore entirely justified. More to the point, it also recovers not just £500 million from Barclays, as they say, but has the potential to safeguard billions of pounds for the taxpayer, and that will be accompanied by the appointment of an assurance commissioner, we are told, who is a sort of HMRC super policeman, if you like, who's going to oversee deals involving big business and HMRC worth more than £100 million to make sure there are no similar tax avoidance schemes. And we know in the budget both Mr Cameron and Mr Clegg have clearly signalled they want to introduce tax avoidance rules cracking down on tax avoidance. Given all that, there are an awful lot of questions being asked by the opposition. One is why there are no sanctions being imposed on Barclays for breaching this code of conduct. And there are also questions as to whether Barclays is a one-off. And the Lib Dems former Treasury spokesman, Lord Oakeshott, was of the view that although Barclays was perhaps the worst offender, other banks and big businesses were adopting similar schemes.
Well, it's two cheers certainly for the Treasury. I'm glad they've done this, but it has taken them a very long time. I mean, 4 years ago, I was using parliamentary privilege in the Lords to expose enormous tax avoidance operations by Barclays all around the world that they were trying to cover up with injunctions. And Barclays' tax avoidance factory down at Canary Wharf, I mean, it's the most productive factory in Britain. Tax avoidance schemes roll off that production line like Rolls Royces. And, you know, it is highly abusive, highly aggressive, and we've got a £38 billion officially estimated tax gap in this country. A very large chunk of it could be closed if the Treasury really got tough with the large-scale tax avoidance by people like Barclays.
Norman, we heard there from Matthew Oakeshott that there are a lot of creative accountants out there coming up with clever schemes. The interesting thing about this is that if they do that, they're the ones who have to let the tax system know. There's a sort of obligation to disclose your own cleverness, which is what's happened here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. This indeed only came to light because Barclays were obliged to tell the Treasury what they were getting up to. One wonders, therefore, whether other banks will have to do the same, because Barclays this morning appeared to be saying that they are somewhat surprised by the reaction of the government, and they take the view that they were working within the law. They didn't breach any rules. They're also seemingly sceptical about the fact they are going to have to pay back all this $500 million, implying that other banks will be paying back money because they too are involved. And interestingly, just a few months ago, we had the Public Accounts Committee. They had a look at this whole area and calculated the total amount of money which might be going uncollected as a result of those schemes could amount to £25 billion.
OK, Norman, thanks very much indeed. Norman Smith there in Westminster.
It's hoped that the cruise ship, which has been drifting without power